like the voice transcription thing. Perfect. All right. Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm an alcoholic. Hey. My sobriety date is August 2nd, 2010. I have a home group. It's Tampa Bay Young People's Group. We meet Thursdays at 7:30 in downtown Tampa. So if you're ever over there on a school night and you want to come hang out with us and then go to pizza afterwards, it's super rad. I love this meeting. It's very similar to my home group. I was just thinking, though, when Jen got up and read the secretary's report, I was talking with somebody the other night about how we used to do that at my home group and we don't anymore. And, like, it really bothers me because I never got to, get up in front of the meeting every single week for 6 months because, we only chair for a month at a time. So that was, my opportunity to really shine, I thought. In case you didn't notice, I really like to be the center of attention all of the time. That's never gone away since I got sober. Maybe it will one day, I hope, for everybody else's sake. I do have a sponsor, and I sponsor others. Testing. You good? Okay. Shout out Kenzo. You did a phenomenal job. I don't know how I'm going to follow that up. That was your replacement dad. That's the one that threw you under the bus for that, not me. Just so you know. But, I related a lot, and we're very similar. I sponsor her, in case nobody did that math. And I related to everything, especially the, I want to do all these things, but I don't want to do any of it right now. Because I live there. We moved 2 years ago and I'm still not unpacked. I just keep moving shit around the house, and God bless my husband and his sponsor, because his sponsor here is all about how annoying I am and how stressful it is for him. So at some point, God will kick in here. I don't know. Caitlin, thank you for asking me. It's my favoriteest thing to do in Alcoholics Anonymous, so it's never a burden. I don't know. My sponsor, we're going to be all over the place tonight. I don't know what's happening. I had an eye twitch for most of the day. Actually, for a few days, I do hair, and I kept feeling like there was a hair on my face, so I think it's just an eye twitch, and it may or may not have made me go a little crazier than normal. However, my sponsor, I've been working with a woman currently for about 5 months, and on Christmas Day of this past year, my sponsor of the last 10 years passed away kind of suddenly. It went downhill real fast. There was, within 30 days, she was gone. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be like, my sponsor. I'm this is a weird time for me. But Tina would be like, I fucking hate spanking. And also, Caitlin told me not to cuss. I'm going to try my A-level best. It's kind of like breathing for me, so do not give her any flack. Please come yell at me. I can handle it. But yeah, Tina hated speaking, and I would just be like, I don't know what that's like. I love it. I just have always wanted to be the center of attention. I did theater and all that weird stuff as a kid. But drinking was the thing, right? I'm weird. I'm full of self-centered fear. Since getting sober, I just kind of lean into the weird. I own it. I'm into it. I'm here for it. And I really don't care if you like it or not. But when I was younger, especially before I had my first drink, weird was not cool, and I was weird. I'm still weird, but I was weird. I had 15. I was still hitting boys that I liked. I just would lie about the craziest things because I just didn't know what to say. So I'd be like, what are you doing? I'd be come up with this elaborate story about how my little sister broke my retainer in half and I'm, have this thing as a replacement when really I'm just chewing on a wet paper towel in the 3rd grade. And I'm thinking of a boxer's mouth guard is what I'm thinking of when I say retainer. And I could have just been I don't know, I just want to chew on this paper towel because I'm 9. It's weird. Live with it. But that was just, I was always doing weird stuff. And when someone would be like, what are you doing? I was just say something that sounds like it could be cool, and it was never cool, and it was always weird, and it never made any sense. Maybe that's why I drank. I don't know. My mom's been in and out of every program there is as long as I can remember, probably way before, honestly, there's evidence way before I was born. She'd been doing this stuff. And today, she may or may not be an alcoholic. I don't know. Currently, things are weird, and she does some pharma activities, and we're pretty, don't know, we're a little estranged. My dad's like a super normal dude. He's a little bit of a narcissist, let's be real. But other than that, like he's a super normal dude. Like he gets up at 5 a.m. He be doing all the things all the time. He's currently like spending most of the year in Costa Rica. I apologize. I talk so fast. I just see her little hands going. Oh, bless. I just like at the corner of my eye. It's crazy. I have really, really strong ADHD. So like I said, this is going to be a journey. I promise I've been sober this whole time. But my dad's like living in Costa Rica because he worked super duper hard his whole entire life and is just like all the way retired and like doing all the cool stuff. And I don't know, man, like I have alcoholism in my family, like treated alcoholism, like people who went to AA and were like, yes, I am alcoholic. I have people in my family that I'm like, you could probably be an alcoholic, I don't know. But I heard a speaker one time talk about like alcoholism, kind of how she looks at it like cancer, right? For some people it's hereditary, for some people like you just got the shitty DNA lottery, I don't know. And that's kind of how I look at it. And a while back, I stopped worrying about why. Like, oh, why am I an alcoholic? Because I am. But the why is so irrelevant, and that holds true in sobriety and in my life. Like, why does not matter. If I know why, maybe I don't have to do the things that I have to do to stay well. No, that's not going to change any of it. Why I'm an alcoholic, why do I have to do AA? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care anymore. I used to, but I just don't. But what I do know is that I love what happens when I drink. I love it. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It was a spiritual experience I didn't know I needed. I tell this like analogy a lot, so a lot of you have probably already heard it. When I read the phrase egomaniac with an inferiority complex, like if you didn't figure it out, I'm a little egocentric all the time. But I read that line and I was like, yes, I don't know what it means, but it makes sense. And I'm so full of self-centered fear, and I couldn't have put that into words long before I got to AA. But I'm just so terrified of what I think you think about me or what I think you might want of me. Like, not even what do you want from me, but like, what human would you like me to present in front of you in this moment? And I lived my life that way. Like, I never felt like I fit in anywhere. Like I said, it was weird. I was doing weird stuff on the regular. I felt like Ricky Bobby and Talladega Nights all the time. Like, car handle real good. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, that was I was like inside all the time. That was me. The analogy. So I tell people this because it's the best way I can equate like what my self-centered fear and that egomaniac with the inferiority complex looks like is I'll go to the grocery store for like one specific item, let's say ketchup. I will do laps around the grocery store looking for said ketchup. I will be unable to locate the ketchup. The grocery store employee will approach me asking if I need help finding anything, and I will say no. And I will leave without the ketchup because it's not even asking for help. It's just the world terrifies me. And I didn't know that, And so the first time I got drunk, that all shut all the way off. I was the best version of myself, to be honest, I think, in my opinion. It was the greatest day of my life. I was 15 years old. It was the weekend before my 16th birthday. And the relevance of that is like other people had caught consequences from my drinking the very first time I drank. So I'm from over in Tampa, like most of my whole entire life. And my birthday happens to be the weekend before or during Gasparilla. If you've never been to Gasparilla, don't. It's not worth it. It's weird now. It's real gross. But I went every single year since I can remember. And I used to say that there was the city of Tampa throwing a birthday party for me. They just call it Gasparilla so other people are not offended and nobody gets their feelings hurt. But I treated it like it was my birthday. It was crazy. Even when I was little. But so 15 is the first time I could go without direct adult supervision. And I remember what I wore. I remember I was talking with a girlfriend about this the other day. I crimped my hair. I remember which shirt I wore, which jeans, my black Chuck Taylors, Converse All-Stars. And that was the day my life changed, you know. I go, somebody offers me something, and I've also, like, the whole ketchup thing is very, like, indicative of my life up until that point, because I just would say no to everything, whether it was someone offering to help me, or, like, you know, when you go to your friend's house and their mom's, like, especially if you're of the Hispanic flavor, like, my family stays trying to feed you. Like, you come in and they're like, you want something to drink, you want something to eat. And I would go over to people's houses and they would offer me beverages and snacks and be like, no, thank you. But like, I'm starving, I'm parched, I'm dehydrated. I'm just like, no. You know, I've said no to everything. And somebody offered me some kind of drink and I said yes, and it was delicious. And I wanted all of it. And he said, nope. I meant, do you want to try it? And I immediately set out to like maintain the effect that was produced by alcohol. And I've heard speakers talk about, like, you know, sitting up and being like, oh my goodness, what is this magical experience? Or, you know, all these different things. 10 minutes after I drank that Pirate's Punch, I was skipping down the road and I knew. I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I need. I just need this feeling all the time, forever, for the rest of my life. How do I do this? And I just, anything that... I like trespassed to every yard that wasn't attended and just grabbed whatever I could get my hands on. And I don't think I could have put it into words at the time, but I knew somewhere like at a cellular level that I didn't want to lose that feeling I had just experienced. Like this ticket, this thing I didn't know I was missing. When I tell you I was the best version of myself, I was hilarious. All the guys like wanted to talk to me and I wasn't hitting them. All the girls wanted to be my friend. Like, it was everything. And I just didn't want to lose that feeling. And I knew if I drank more, I would maintain the way that I was feeling. So that's what I did. I'm not a very large person in this moment. At 15, I looked like an 11-year-old. So like, it didn't take a whole lot for me to overshoot the mark real fast. So the first time I got drunk was the first time I blacked out. It's the first time I had a whole mess of consequences, and then a whole bunch of other people had consequences, because the next weekend was my 16th birthday, and it was really cool to do like lavish children's parties for teenagers at that time. There was like a show about it and everything. And so part of my punishment, because, you know, I like remember falling back and I had a bunch of bottles in a like knapsack thingy that shattered when I fell back. And then all of a sudden I was like in my friend's bathroom puking my face off, and my dad's like just in the doorway looking at me disappointed. And so like I got in trouble for getting drunk. I think I lied about something, I don't know. And part of it was like we had to cancel the party. So I had to like go tell these other two girls whose 16th birthday it also was, sorry about your life, we don't have a birthday party anymore. Because we had like rented a hall, the whole fucking grade was invited. It was craziness. But, you know, and I also got told all the things that I did that day, because I don't remember none of it. I remember going, I need to drink more. That's all I remember. And like, I feel like I just tell this all the time, but like I puked in a Starbucks, I dismantled a chip display at a gas station, and I made out with my friend's 12-year-old brother, and I just thought everybody was lying about how awesome I had become. And also, I just didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't care, because I knew I was going to do whatever I needed to do to like maintain or recapture that feeling. And I'll be honest with you, like, I was thinking about it earlier. There was not another time when I was drinking that like I had that awesome moment before I started trespassing and stealing from strangers, where I was like, how have I not lived like this my whole life? Like, I've never, ever, ever felt that again. I felt something very comparable here in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's been like when I sit and listen to Another Woman's Fifth Step. Like, that's when I feel like, this is what I've been missing my whole life, you know? And unfortunately, much like booze or anything else, like I can't stay well on the stuff I did yesterday. So I have to keep, you know, working with new girls, keep staying in the middle of the boat, do all of these things to not go back to the person that I'm going to describe. You know, because like there were other people who were hurt by my drinking. I was hurt by my drinking, and I'm talking about like day one. And my poor little father, bless his heart, he like had to alarm me into my room at night. I was just doing crazy stuff. And is that thunder? Tight. Okay. Just making sure you all hear it too. But I had a 10 o'clock curfew until the day I graduated from high school. I would make new best friends every other week because I would find the girls that didn't have curfews, and I would be like, oh my God, we should hang out and have a sleepover at your house. And then I would drag them to parties and I would make them do things because my parents were not letting me do nothing. See, I'm trying really hard. It's really tough. I swear like it's breathing. But yeah, just high school was a blur. It was weird. My parents helped me, and by helped me, I mean they sat on me until I filled out my applications and my essays, and they made sure I got into college, and I did all of those things. And my dad remarried when I was 7 or 9. I don't know. My stepmom's been in my life since I was 3, so a lot of times I'm going to say my mom, and that's who I'm talking about. Because she's been the most consistent mother figure I've had my whole entire life, and I hurt her very, very deeply with my drinking and my actions. Because the truth is drinking exacerbated a lot of my character defects, but I'm not a nice girl who drank too much, and I learned that here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I put the drink down. And I don't have a spiritual program of action as a solution, and I get worse, and I'm going to tell you about that in a little bit, because there was a few years running around AA like a psychopath without a drink in me, and I used to tell people, you don't know what I can do and stay sober. And I was proud of it. It was real gross. But yeah, so I graduated. It was weird. I moved down to Fort Myers because that's where my birth mom lived, and I thought that was a really good idea because we were going to party together. And, I began my criminal career at that time. I was telling this story recently. My grandfather passed away in 2008, and he was my best friend. That was my guy, hands down. We were thick as thieves. My family still talks about when I was little, and I get in trouble, that I would say, I want to go to Papa's Corner, because I could be in timeout, but he would just sit there and be like, they don't love you like I love you. He was great. And he was also sober 26 or 27 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. He was sponsoring people up until he died. And, I graduated high school in 2005, so by 2008, I've racked up a few charges, nothing super crazy, but may or may not be facing a 5-year prison sentence. And my grandfather had passed away, and I was such a shit. I'm trying. I was a terrible child and granddaughter during that time, and I just couldn't be present, I had this dog. Somebody had given me a dog. I don't know who or why, but I was like, oh, puppy! And they gave it to me. And I couldn't make it home from work to let her out. I could go to work and I could go to wherever we were drinking after work. That was it, I remember back then there was a moment where gas had gone up to $4 a gallon, and that was unheard of, and I would somehow manage to scrounge up $12 to put 3 gallons of gas in my car, because that's all I had just to get wherever I was going, and I would run out of gas constantly. I had this job at the mall in Naples, because I had 2 goals before I got sober. My lifelong, these were my dreams. I was going to be on The Real World, and I was going to move to California to follow Hollywood Undead around. And somehow I just kept moving further south in Florida, So, I started in Tampa, and then I wound up in, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and I was in Naples, and I was like, we're going the wrong way. What are you doing here? But I remember, after my grandpa died, I came back to Tampa for the funeral and all that stuff. And I was here the whole time, but I wasn't here. I remember I was using this AOL chat instant messenger thing, and I was talking to some random stranger, because side note, that's a thing I used to do when I was 16, 17 years old also, why my father started alarming me into the room at night is because I was sneaking out all the time, meeting strangers that I met on the internet, and I would just go drink with them. And the term catfishing hadn't even been like coined yet. So like I was a walking Dateline special waiting to happen. And like that was probably one of the first things when I came into AA and like I really wrestled with the idea of a higher power. Like that was one of the first things that I could look at and be like, something wanted you, not a lampshade, you know, like I don't know. Because I stayed putting myself in precarious, compromising, challenging positions. And, you know, you would think the first time I got caught sneaking out, I would have not done it again. And then, like, the alarming me into that's when I started, like, I'm just going to make new best friends and I'm going to spend the night at their house. It makes perfect sense. You know, and it was the same thing when I was, like, living down in Naples. Like, I was constantly, like, just finding myself in these circumstances that I was like, I didn't know that we had agreed to participate in any of this. And it, you know, and like, I remember I would be driving and I'd like come to, and I didn't know that I did not remember getting in my car. I did not remember making any of those decisions. And it was getting real scary. And, you know, so I had, my grandpa died and I was at the funeral, and my parents told me, because I have a cousin who is 9 months older than I am, and we were super close our whole entire lives. I mean, mostly it was just because like the dads would drop us off at the grandparents all day and just be like, watch our kids. And so she was like my Insta friend for most of my life. And she had been like doing some sketchy stuff, and she was kind of the black sheep of the family at the time. And my dad said, he was like, listen, I don't want you messing with Nico while you're here. Stay away from her. And I went, hey, you want to come back to Fort Myers with me after Pop's funeral? Like, I miss you, girl. And so she did, and we did a whole bunch of things and got real messed up, and that was like the first time I ended up getting arrested. And for the longest time I was like, you know, if she hadn't been speeding, they would not have searched my purse, they would not have found those things, and I would not have these felony drug charges. You know, and like, but after that I just remember thinking like, Pop would be so pissed at you. And, like, I knew he didn't drink. Like, I was aware of that fact. And, like, I knew he had, like, but I don't think it, like, registered ever until I was a few years sober and he had passed away before that. And, like, it just hit me one day out of nowhere. And I was just like, this would have been such a cool experience to have with him. You know, so, like, I do my A-level best to be in the middle of AA because I know that's what he would have wanted and that's what he would have done. And, you know, so, I don't know. I was getting in more trouble. I started like racking up more charges. I call my dad because that's what I do when I'm about to be in bigger trouble than I already am in. But I think the last time I called him, I was like, yeah, you know, I have to take, so I'd like been arrested a bunch. I'd been on probation. I'd messed that up. And then I was on like baby probation. I messed that up and I got put on real probation. And I was like, yeah, I have to like take this lie detector test because there's like, I don't know, something weird happened at the store I was working at the mall. And he was like, whoa, what? So he hired me an attorney and told me, like, after we get this fixed, like, get home. Just come home to St. Pete and, like, we'll get your life together. And I remember I was sitting outside of Collier County Sheriff's Office, and I was being charged with grand larceny. And my attorney was like, listen, it's just us. You have privilege. Did you steal that money? And I went, no, I swear, I don't know what happened. I didn't take it. It's crazy. They're profiling me because I'm on probation. This is wild. They're trying to make an example of me. There is a line in the doctor's opinion where it says the alcoholic at times is unable to differentiate the true from the false. To them, the alcoholic life seems the only normal one. And for a long time, I just thought that meant like I couldn't keep up with like the lies I told you about that person and this thing and the robbing Peter to pay Paul. But like, it's so that delusion of what I think reality is. And I thought the way I was living up until the day I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous was normal. Granted, by a lot of comparable features, I am a relatively high bottom drunk. there was nothing normal about what I was doing, how I was living, and how I was existing in this world. So at about 2.5 years fake sober, I realized, oh my God, I stole that money. Like, it hit me like a freight train. I was like, I stole that money. And it wasn't that I like just cleared out the registers one day like a psychopath. No, I just like borrowed $20 here to like go to the food court and get some food because I hadn't eaten and I was gonna pay it back when I got my paycheck. And I just did that over and over and over and over again, and I never managed to pay any of it back. And so I was like, oh wow, that is crazy town. Because I was convinced, had I been hooked up to that polygraph, I was passing it. Like, there was no world where me stealing that money was even a remote possibility. Like, no, I didn't do that. I wouldn't do that. But that's just like the level of delusion that I was living in. And so after that, because my parents like wrote a check to pay that stuff off, and then I had to like write this affidavit and sign this thing that says I will never even apply to work at any Genesco Corporation company for the rest of my life. So that wasn't on my amends. But I like packed up all my things and my poor little neglected dog, and I moved home, and it was awful. It was awful. It was awful before I got there, and then it was awful when I got there, you know. I took my dog to live with my uncle, who has a big house and no family, and he's like a little schizophrenic sometimes when he's unmedicated, but like he's really good with dogs. And he loved Micah, and I always forget to tell people, because I'm like, I have this dog, she ate birthday cake for 6 months, and then I like never bring it back up. She lived a very long, fat, happy life. He brought her by the house once a couple years ago. She was like all gray in the face and just like old, and just, it was great, you know, but it was good for both of them. But, so I did that, and I was living with my parents, and they go to bed at like 8 p.m. So that like really put a damper on my like lifestyle or my social life, if you will, because I also wasn't allowed to have a key to their house. So like coming and going was really like not an option. And, my mom washed all of my clothes as soon as I got there. I was so offended, and like got rid of some of them. And I was like, those were my favorite weird Hollister pants. Like, why did you throw those away? She's like, everything smells like cigarettes. I believe her, you know, today, but I was really, really offended about that. And so my dad was like, listen, you know, and like, I was really good at keeping a lid on how chaotic my life really was, you know, like I wouldn't call my dad, like I didn't even call him to tell him about the polygraph. Like I was just talking about other stuff, and he was like, yeah, so what's going on? I was like, yeah, I've got this thing coming up next week, just zero, emphasis on any of it. So I was staying at their house, and basically, like, what was happening is I was having to steal, like, 1 or 2 of his beers and take some leftover pain pills every night just to go to sleep. Because by this time, now I'm experiencing in moments of sobriety, or lucidity rather, like my brain is trying to eat its way out of my head. It's just going on all the things I've done, where I've been, who I've disappointed, who I've become, and this idea that my grandfather would just be so disappointed. And like, I don't know about you, I can't live like that. So I have to do something to shut it off. So that's what I was doing. And then a couple weeks or months, I don't know, I can't tell time later, my parents had stuck me in this little apartment in downtown St. Pete, and I was like, they're so proud of me. They were like, get out of my house, you ratchet girl. Because my parents, who have been together every single day since their second date, it's weird, I don't know, it works for them. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. They share a cell phone. It's like the weirdest, most effective form of codependency I've ever seen. They also like hate people though, you know, so it's weird. But they were fighting all the time about what to do with me, you know, and I didn't know this, and it was probably like around this time my mom told me that every time my father got off of the phone with me, she would take his blood pressure, because my grandfather, who had 2 open heart surgeries and like 9 triple bypass surgeries, had his first heart attack at 45, and she was convinced I was going to kill her husband. And like that has so much more weight today than it ever did back then, you know. And they had hired me. My dad had worked his whole, like, you know, he went back to school at 35, decided he wanted to be a physician. He built this huge practice, and I'm like going in there as an employee, a walking malpractice suit. I would put patients on therapy, and I would come out of the room, and I'd be like, I'll chart it later. I'm super busy, and I don't know what I did. That's the reality. It's like I couldn't remember what I had done. And my father, who's this man who has worked his whole life to be able to do what he's doing now, I was risking his license every single day. I was risking his marriage. I was risking all of these things, and I lived in that idea of like, I'm only hurting myself. You know, and it got to a point where, because I also was like, I'm the doctor's daughter, I'll never get fired. No, they fired me. They were like, you gotta go, sis. You know, and it started to get real dark real fast. I regularly started coming to in places I didn't know I had agreed to go, participating in things I didn't know I had agreed to participate in, and it started getting scary and it started getting dark. And, you know, through a weird set of circumstances, I called my aunt, who is like my second mom and best friend. And really, I was dating this dirtbag, and he did something I didn't like. So I threatened to call his father and tell him that he was doing drugs again like he had before. And he saw my threat and raised me in actually calling a family member, and called my aunt and basically like left her this crazy voicemail at 2 a.m. of like all the things I had been doing. So she calls me the next day and it's like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, da, 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 da. And she put her partner at the time on the phone with me, and she was sober 13 years, I think, back then. And she said, when you drink, do bad things happen? And in that moment, I said yes every time. And she said, if I went to an AA meeting, would you go with me? And in that moment, I said yes. And we hear all the time that we come in here by seconds and inches. And had that question been presented to me an hour earlier, 30 minutes later, I was 22, man. I'd be like, no, it's great. Drinking is great. I'm having a blast. Because I would tell myself things like, well, if I was up at FSU, everybody would be drinking like this. You know, everybody would have a pit bull in an airline travel crate that they can't like take her out ever, and coming home to an inch of urine every day. Everybody would be living like that. It's normal. That's what I thought. I would tell myself. And I would find people that were worse than me. Like I always had, like, I was able to, you know, keep lowering that bar in my peers so that, like, you know, at least I'm not as bad as that one. Because the second I was at least I'm not as bad as person, like I had to find new people. And the second somebody questioned my drinking or what I was doing, I would just like kill you off of the production that is my life, and never, like, ghosting wasn't a thing back then, but I would just like, goodbye. Not talk to you anymore. And so, yeah, they also were like, why don't you come stay with us for a little bit? And I, unlike Mackenzie, I did get sober in the wild. You know, I've never been to treatment. I've never been to detox. Sometimes I think it might be kind of nice, you know, like I would love, my husband's sponsor calls it adult summer camp. And like, that sounds delightful. You know, like I would love a grippy Zoc vacay. And if you know, you know, like there's just sometimes that like all these really beautiful things that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me, I'm still a selfish, self-centered little feral garbage person. So like I get overwhelmed with it, you know, and like I didn't want to. But I went to my first meeting with her, and I stayed with them for the first couple months I was sober, and I drank that Kool-Aid, yo. Like I remember I heard this woman get up and she talked about the things that I had done. She talked about the thoughts that I had, and then she talked about having a relationship with her brother. And I have 2 younger sisters that they really didn't see a ton of my chaos and my horror show that was my drinking, but like we were not close, you know, and I wanted that, you know. She had this incredible relationship with her brother now, and it was because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was like, sign me up, what do I got to do, you know. And I remember I came home that night and I said, I'm definitely an alcoholic, I am for sure like these people, but like I think I'm going to keep smoking weed, because it doesn't seem to cause me any problems. I pay my bills, I clean my house, it's fine. And she said, okay, just keep going to meetings. And then I also said, listen, if they try to tell me about God, I'm out. And if they try to tell me what to do, I'm out. To everyone who is new or coming back, welcome. We're going to tell you about God and tell you don't know how to do life. We need to show you. Because that was my experience. Like I needed to be told what to do. You know, I needed to run things by my sponsor in the beginning. Like, should I brush my teeth now or should I brush my teeth later? Should I make my bed? Should I not make my bed? You know, like that level of crazy. I needed that kind of direction. And, but you know, and like my previous declaration of I'm going to keep smoking the weed, she was like, okay, just keep going to meetings. So I did, you know, and I got a sponsor because they said find somebody who has what you want, and this girl kept asking me if I had gotten a sponsor yet, and she offered to sponsor me, and I was like, I tried to tutor my cousin in algebra one time, and she failed because we got no work done. This does not feel like I feel like we're going to be friends. And so there was this girl that was just like real happy all the time. And she, like on paper, she should not have been that happy. She lived with her grandparents. She didn't have a car. She didn't have a boyfriend. She didn't have a driver's license. She had been sober like 4 or 5 years, and she was happy. Like, maybe there was something else going on. I don't know. You know, but I asked her to sponsor me, and we started working steps, and I'm still smoking weed and not telling anybody. And, you know, and I'm sure, like, there had to be somebody who was like, should look a little sideways. But you know, I just kept coming to meetings and I kept doing things. And I remember at like a month-ish or something, I don't know how long I'd been working with her, I came to her with this resentment, and I was so offended, and I was so angry, and I was like, I'm really struggling to see my part in things. Again, remember, I was new, I didn't know what I was talking about. I don't say that anymore. But she goes, oh, honey, you don't have a part. And I was like, I don't know a whole lot, but I don't feel like that's right. I'm still smoking weed, and I've got like a couple months fake sober, and I don't think that feels right. So I asked another woman that I respected in Alcoholics Anonymous to take me through the steps. And funny enough, I saw her last night at my home group, and her husband is here tonight, and that like that kind of stuff only happens here, you know. And they were sober, and they just moved away, and like life took them outside of Florida. And I don't call people ever because I don't know how to interact with people who are not directly in front of me. But you know, it was just one of those like kind of weird moments that only happens here, where I was like, holy shit, I haven't seen you in a decade. Like, this is crazy. And it was just like my heart was so full just from that like little exchange, because naturally everybody's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you, and like I can't do all that crazy like flocking stuff, you know. But so I started this journey around that time too, where I would just like be not feeling whatever anybody else was feeling in AA. You know, I would see you guys and you all looked like you were actually happy. And like, don't get me wrong, I was happy. My life was exponentially better. You know, like I had stopped waking up and like wondering why. You know, I had stopped looking myself in the mirror and being like, who is that? What is that? You know, that chatter, that screaming in my head of like, your grandpa's disappointed, your father's disappointed, you're ruining their lives, you're ruining their marriage, you're not able to show up for your sisters, that you're just like your mother. All of that stuff was like gone, you know, but there was just something missing. So I'd get a new sponsor, duh. And I would hear sponsors talk about, or I would hear speakers talk about, like, you know, you're doing your 5th step, and you get to that thing at the bottom that you're not going to tell anybody. I don't write that on a piece of paper in my entire life. Like, I have never written down on any inventory, I have been smoking weed for lots of months and lying about it in Alcoholics Anonymous. None of that happened. I was just like, it would pop up in my head, and I'd be like, shut up, go away. You know, I'd be in a meeting and I'd hear a speaker talk about marijuana maintenance, and I'd be like, well, that's not my experience. I just smoked weed for a little while and I stopped. Because at 9 months of being in AA, I went, you know what, I should stop all of this because it's disrespectful to my AA friends because they're being super honest about things. Real, like 100%, that is the thought I had in my head with those words. But I'm not going to tell anybody about it, you know, because like I insinuated, like I kind of like threw it out there a few times to a few people, and this one kid was like, oh man, if I haven't smoked so much as this would happen, this would happen, this would happen, and I'd get arrested. And I'm like, that's not happening here, so we're just never going to bring this up again. And then I had a sponsor that would say things like, your secrets keep you sick. And I'd be like, shut up. Because it was there, you know, like that little like connection with the higher power that honestly, I'm lazy. God is a one-syllable word. Like, I don't try to define it or any of that stuff. I just, like, it's quick. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. But, like, that connection with God, it had started, you know. So that little, like, you're doing something, it's making you different. I was, like, can I say hell? I was hell-bent on practicing a la carte AA, which is a thing I did for a while. It was really gross. So at like 9 months in, I'm sponsoring people, I'm chairing business meetings, I'm, you know, on committees, I'm doing all this stuff. And I've stopped smoking weed, and I've told not a soul for 3 years. I ran around Alcoholics Anonymous like an absolute psychopath. You know, and like, with what I was equipped to do, I helped as much as I could. You know, like, I don't think I was like a complete terrorist. Adjacent, yes. You know, because like I said, I really did. I would tell people, you don't know what I can do, and stay sober. Like, it was a badge of honor. I remember I tried to get this girl to come to my home group so I could fight her over not my resentment, because I wanted to prove that I do not have spiritual consequences. I was a nut. It was not okay, you know? And that's when I'm telling you that I'm not a nice girl who drank too much, like, that is accurate. I was having inappropriate conversations with not the man I was living with, whom I am now married to, you know? Like, I was stealing from work, sober, you know? Stealing from my employees at work, sober, you know? Like, just crazy. And thank God that I have been so insulated in Alcoholics Anonymous that the people around me do not have nearly as high of a threshold for my spiritual pain as I do. Because they be looking at me sideways sometimes, like, what is wrong with you? So one day, in a fight with my now husband, it came out in the middle of the night. And I was just like, I need to change my sobriety date. And nothing happened. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't catch on fire. I didn't die. I didn't get kicked out of AA. You know, I called my sponsor at the time, and I told her, and she said the phrase that we all hate, but we've all said, you're going to help so many people with this one day. And I was like, go yourself. Because, you know, Morgan and I had that kind of relationship. I love that, you know. And, you know, she wasn't wrong. And it wasn't like all of a sudden these people just crawled out of the woodwork, but like, I was uniquely qualified to help in Alcoholics Anonymous in a way that I hadn't been before, you know, because we are uniquely qualified to help the alcoholic, but now I had an actual experience that I was watching women come into meetings and share about. And I was like literally within 48 hours, a girl at this meeting who was in a halfway house shared how she had, you know, drank a couple days before and wasn't going to tell anybody. And I was like, oh, girl, let me tell you what happens. It's not cute. You hurt people. And so, you know, like my world changed, you know, like I was running around trying to sponsor people like my life depended on it, because it does. But like, I had no message to carry. I was just a psychopath. Like, it was not a good look. You know, so like I started working with women, and I started being more honest and more transparent in all of my affairs. And at that time, that was the very first experience I had that was like, at being in AA for several years, being involved, being pseudo in the middle, like, that was the scariest thing I could have imagined, was like getting that honest, being like, hey, I've been lying for 3 years to all of you. But in that moment, you know, and that wasn't my first experience with like God kind of holding my hand and helping me through something, but like that became the foundation of what I would look back on for the rest of my life when things came up and life got scary. Because nobody told me everything was going to be great and rainbows and sunshine now that you're sober. In fact, they were like, buckle up, life is still going to happen. And I'm so grateful for that, because don't get me wrong, like I live an incredible life today. Like I am so, so grateful for the life that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. But like, life still happens. People, you know, babies are still born. People are still going to die. The sun is going to rise and it's going to set. I can do nothing about those things. But what I can do is utilize some of these tools and the people here to like, either A, not make it all about me, or B, not burn my life down in spite of it. You know, and so I've had, you know, like I met this man in Alcoholics Anonymous, and we got married, and we had a beautiful AA wedding. We argued a lot about whether or not to serve booze because, like, my family drinks, and I was like, listen, like, they're not going to want to stay, you know, and we did that, and, you know, for a period of time planning that wedding and getting ready for it, I had a relationship with my birth mother that I didn't know was possible. I didn't know that version of her existed, and I would have missed it had I not been sober, you know. And shortly after our wedding, that version of her went away and has not come back ever again, you know. But I learned a lot, and I learned, you know, that like that was possible, that I could have, that there was, like, because I used to ask my dad, like, how did you end up with that? That is wild. And he was like, he would tell me, and like I saw that version of her just briefly, but I got to experience it, and it was really, really cool. And that's been an experience that I've been able to like share with other people in AA. You know, and like a month after we got married, my husband decided he was no longer an alcoholic, and I was real mad, and it was a weird time, you know, because like all of a sudden, like, I'm married to this person and I don't know a whole lot about them, you know, and I got close to drinking because I started having the thoughts of, like, if you can't beat him, you might as well join him. And the truth is like, leading up to it, like any one of us, like, not working the program, not doing the things, or, you know, like, not being in the middle, like, we kind of suck. And then all of a sudden, hi, puppy. All of a sudden, he was like real fun and awesome. And I was pissed. Because I was like, now you're joking and cuddling and fun and want to party and go places and do things? You've been terrible for 6 months. You know, and it was challenging, you know, but when I started having those thoughts of like, if I can't beat him, I might as well join him, like, I got my happy butt back in the middle of AA, you know, and then he got sober again, and he celebrated 10 years last month, and we have this house that it's just a place of recovery and hope, you know. We filled it with all these newcomers because we can't afford it, so we rent out rooms, and, you know, but we get to watch people's lives get rebuilt, restructured, and reorganized in front of us in real time, you know, like, there's usually somebody doing step work or somebody, you know, maybe crashing on the couch occasionally, you know, like, and that was what I was taught. I was shown through example how to live this life day to day, you know, how to show up, how to do the things, how to keep God at the center of my life, and it's been incredible, you know, but like a couple years ago, my mom killed some person on a bicycle and went to jail and compared herself to O.J. Simpson, and that was a whole thing, and my son decided he was going to try his hand at criminal activity and did not do it well, and that was stressful, and the world shut down, you know, and like AA was still there though, you know, like my people, my community has always been around me, you know, so like even when times are tough, like, and I just remember, like, that time that I got honest, like, I'm going to be okay no matter what. Sometimes okay means I'm ugly crying on the bathroom floor, but I don't have to drink because of it. You know, if I continue to do these things, if I show up, if I practice these principles, kind of, not well. I don't pretend I'm perfect at this, you know, but honestly, like, sponsoring other women, that is the secret sauce. Like, if you've not done that yet, do that. It will change your life in the most profound way, because these women that I work with, like, they hold me accountable in a way nobody else does. They teach me so much, and you know, and they've helped me grow as a woman, as a daughter, as a wife, and I will not tell them to do anything that I myself don't do. Like, you will never catch me being a hypocrite in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll do a lot of weird stuff, but like, I will not be a hypocrite. And you know, and I've been transparent and honest with them about my shortcomings and my failings as a wife, as a daughter. I've done things that I, like, sober, that I'm not super impressed with, but like, I share about them openly and honestly with the women that I sponsor because that's what I saw. I saw people come in here looking like real estate Barbie and talk about doing the things that I had done, you know, feeling the things that I had felt sober. And that gave me hope that, like, none of us are ever too far gone, sober or otherwise, where God can't get the most mileage out of every experience. So if you got nothing out of this, I'm terribly sorry to have wasted your time. Please go to another meeting. I am by no means an expert on alcoholism or AA. I'm just an example that it works if you choose to actually take the actions. Thank you.